The morning sun painted golden streaks across the kitchen window as Kate hummed softly while preparing breakfast. Her long auburn hair caught the light as she moved gracefully between the stove and counter, scrambling eggs the way William loved them, fluffy and slightly buttery. The smell of fresh coffee filled their small but cozy home, mixing with the aroma of toast browning in the vintage toaster they had bought at a garage sale 3 years ago. William sat at the wooden table they had painted together last spring, reading the newspaper but stealing glances at his wife. Even after 8 years of marriage, she still made his heart skip a beat. The way she bit her lower lip when concentrating, the gentle sway of her hips as she cooked, the melodic sound of her voice filling their home with warmth. Everything about Kate was perfect in his eyes. "The Johnsons are having another barbecue this weekend," William said, folding the newspaper. "Think we should go?" Kate turned around, spatula in hand, and smiled. "Only if you promise not to challenge Mr. Johnson to another grilling contest." "Remember what happened last time?" William laughed, remembering how he had burned the hamburgers while trying to prove he could cook better than their neighbor. "That was a learning experience."
"I've improved since then." "Sure you have," Kate teased, bringing over his plate.
She leaned down and kissed his forehead before sitting across from him. "But I love your burned burgers anyway." They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from years of knowing each other so well that words weren't always necessary. Outside, birds chirped in the oak tree William had planted when they first moved into this house. Kate had wanted a garden, and he had wanted to give her everything she desired. After breakfast, William gathered his things for work. He was an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. Nothing glamorous but stable and reliable, qualities that had drawn Kate to him in the first place. She worked part-time at the local library, surrounded by books and helping children discover the magic of reading. "Don't forget we have dinner with my parents tonight," Kate reminded him as he grabbed his car keys. William paused at the door and turned back to her. She was already clearing the dishes, her movements efficient but unhurried. Something in his chest tightened, not from anxiety but from overwhelming love. Sometimes the intensity of his feelings for Kate caught him off guard, like a wave that swept over him without warning. "I love you," he said suddenly, his voice thick with emotion. Kate looked up, surprised by the intensity in his voice. "I love you too, silly. Now go, or you'll be late." But William didn't move. He walked back to her, took the dishes from her hands, and pulled her into his arms. He held her tightly, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, something floral and light that reminded him of spring mornings. "William, what's gotten into you?" Kate asked, but she wasn't complaining. She wrapped her arms around his neck and looked into his brown eyes. "Not that I'm complaining about surprise hugs. I want you to know how much you mean to me," he said, stroking her cheek with his thumb. "Sometimes I feel like I don't tell you enough." Kate's expression softened. This was one of the things she loved most about William. His tender heart, the way he could be moved to sudden displays of affection by nothing more than the sight of her washing dishes. "You tell me every day," she whispered, "in 100 different ways. In the way you make my coffee exactly how I like it, in how you listen to my stories from the library, in how you hold my hand during movies even when they're boring." They stood there in their kitchen, holding each other as the morning light shifted and changed around them. Neither of them knew that this ordinary Tuesday morning would be one of the last times they would share such a moment. Neither could have imagined that their world was about to change in ways that would test every promise they had ever made to each other. The phone rang, breaking the spell. Kate reluctantly pulled away to answer it. "Hello?" she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. William watched her face change as she listened to whoever was on the other end. Her smile faded, replaced by concern, then confusion, then something that looked like fear. "Yes, this is Kate Morrison," she said, her voice becoming smaller. "When, are you sure?" William moved closer, trying to read her expression. Kate's free hand reached for his automatically, her fingers cold despite the warm kitchen. I understand. "Yes, I'll be there as soon as I can," she said, before hanging up. For a moment they stood in silence. The coffee maker gurgled softly. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. Outside, a car drove past, its engine fading into the distance. "Kate?" William's voice was gentle but urgent. "What is it?" She looked at him with wide eyes, as if she was seeing him from very far away. "That was the hospital," she said quietly. Mom collapsed at work. They don't know what's wrong yet, but they want me to come right away." William's arms were around her before she finished speaking. Kate's mother, Linda, had been more than a mother-in-law to him. She had been the mother he had lost when he was 12. The thought of something happening to her sent a chill through his bones. "I'll drive you," he said immediately. "Let me call work." No, you have that important meeting with the Peterson account," Kate said, though her voice shook slightly. "I can drive myself." "Kate, I'm not letting you drive when you're upset. The meeting can wait." She looked up at him, gratitude and love mixing in her green eyes. "What did I do to deserve you?" "You said yes when I asked you to marry me," William replied, trying to lighten the mood. "Best decision you ever made." Despite everything, Kate managed a small smile. "Second best. The first was letting you talk me into getting that stray cat." "Mr. Whiskers was a good judge of character," William said, thinking of their beloved cat who had passed away 2 years ago. He knew good people when he saw them. As they prepared to leave for the hospital, neither Kate nor William could have known they were about to begin a journey that would test their love in ways they never imagined possible. The hospital corridors seemed endless as Kate and William hurried toward the cardiac unit. Their footsteps echoed against the polished floors, mixing with the distant sounds of medical equipment and hushed conversations. Kate's hand gripped William's so tightly that her knuckles had turned white, but he didn't mind. He would have carried her pain if he could. Dr. Martinez, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, met them outside Linda's room. Her expression was professional but gentle, the look of someone who had delivered difficult news many times before. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm glad you're here," she said, shaking Kate's hand. "Your mother had what we call a massive heart attack. We've stabilized her for now, but I need to be honest with you about her condition." Kate's legs seemed to give out slightly, and William's arm immediately went around her waist to steady her. "What does that mean exactly?" Kate asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The damage to her heart is extensive. We're doing everything we can, but the next 48 hours are critical. She's sedated right now, but you can go in and see her." Nothing could have prepared Kate for seeing her vibrant, energetic mother lying so still in that hospital bed. Linda Morrison had always been a force of nature, working full-time as a nurse, volunteering at the animal shelter on weekends, maintaining a garden that was the envy of the neighborhood. She had taught Kate to be strong, to face life's challenges head-on, to never give up hope. Now she looked so small, so fragile, connected to machines that beeped and hummed around her. Her usually perfectly styled gray hair was disheveled, and her face, normally animated with laughter or conversation, was peaceful but unnaturally still. Kate approached the bed slowly, as if sudden movements might somehow make things worse. She took her mother's hand, surprised by how cold it felt. "Mom," she whispered. "It's Kate, I'm here." There was no response, just the steady rhythm of the heart monitor and the soft whoosh of the ventilator. Kate looked back at William, who stood near the doorway, giving her space but ready to provide support the moment she needed it. "She looks so different," Kate said, her voice cracking. She was just at our house for dinner Sunday. She brought those cookies I love, the ones with chocolate chips. She was complaining about Mrs. Peterson's dog getting into her flower bed again." William moved closer and placed his hand on Kate's shoulder. "She's going to fight this, Kate. Your mom is the strongest person I know." "Is she?" Kate asked, turning to look at him with tear-filled eyes. "Because right now she looks like she's already giving up." "Hey," William said softly, turning Kate to face him fully. "Remember when you had pneumonia 2 years ago? You were so sick and I was terrified. But your mom, she never left your side. She slept in that uncomfortable hospital chair for 3 nights straight. She told me that Morrison women don't give up easily. That's what she said. Morrison women are fighters." Kate managed a small smile through her tears. "She did say that, didn't she?" "She did. And you know what else she said?" "What?" "She said she wasn't going anywhere because she had grandchildren to spoil someday. And she'd be damned if she was going to miss that." The mention of grandchildren, something Kate and William had been talking about more frequently lately, brought fresh tears to Kate's eyes. But these felt different somehow. Less desperate, more hopeful. Over the next 3 days, Kate barely left her mother's side. William brought her changes of clothes, meals she barely touched, and books to read aloud to Linda. The nurses began to recognize them, offering gentle smiles and updates whenever they could. Kate read Linda her favorite romance novels, the ones with predictable happy endings that Linda claimed were pure escapism. She told her about the new children's program at the library, about how William had finally fixed the leaky faucet in their guest bathroom, about anything and everything that came to mind. William watched his wife pour all of her love and energy into these one-sided conversations, and his heart broke a little more each day. He had seen Kate sad before, when their cat died when she didn't get the promotion she wanted at the library, during the occasional argument they had like all married couples. But this was different. This was a kind of raw pain that seemed to consume her from the inside. On Thursday evening, as Kate dozed in the uncomfortable hospital chair, William found himself alone with Linda for the first time. He pulled his chair closer to her bed and took her hand. "I don't know if you can hear me, Linda, but I need you to know something," he began quietly. "Kate is falling apart without you. I'm trying to be strong for her, but I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to take away her pain." He paused, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor. "She talks about you all the time, you know, about how you taught her to garden, how you showed her that being strong doesn't mean you can't be gentle too. She says you're her best friend, and I think that's true. I think you two have something special that not all mothers and daughters have." William felt his own tears starting and wiped them away quickly. "She needs you to fight, Linda. We both do. I know this is hard and I know you might be tired, but please don't leave us yet. Kate isn't ready. I don't think she'll ever be ready, but especially not now." As if in response to his words, Linda's fingers seemed to squeeze his hand ever so slightly. It could have been his imagination, or it could have been an involuntary muscle spasm, but William chose to believe it was Linda letting him know she had hurt him. The next morning brought Dr. Martinez with news that was cautiously optimistic. Linda's vital signs had improved slightly overnight. She was still critical, but there were small signs that her body was beginning to respond to treatment. Kate cried when she heard the news. Not tears of despair this time, but tears of relief mixed with exhaustion. She had been holding her breath for days, afraid to hope, afraid to believe that things might get better. "Does this mean she's going to be okay?" Kate asked. "It's still too early to say for certain," Dr. Martinez replied honestly, "but it's a step in the right direction. Her body is fighting, and that's exactly what we want to see." That afternoon, for the first time since receiving that phone call, Kate actually ate a full meal. William had brought her favorite sandwich from the deli near their house, and she finished every bite while telling him about a funny dream she had had about her mother. In the dream, Mom was lecturing the doctors about how to do their job, Kate said with a laugh that sounded almost normal. She was telling them that the heart monitors weren't loud enough and that the hospital gowns were too flimsy. She wanted to speak to the manager about the quality of the pudding they serve. William laughed too, the first genuine laughter he had felt in days. "That sounds exactly like something she would do." "It really does," Kate agreed. Then her expression grew more serious. "William? Yeah? Thank you. For everything. For being here. For taking care of me, for not letting me fall apart completely." William reached across the small table in the hospital cafeteria and took her hand. "That's what husbands are for. Through better or worse, remember?" "I remember," Kate said softly. I don't know what I would do without you." "You'll never have to find out," William replied, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. 3 weeks later, Linda was finally strong enough to go home. The doctors had warned that recovery would be slow, and that she would need to make significant lifestyle changes, but she was alive and gradually getting stronger each day. Kate had thrown herself into caring for her mother with the same intensity she had shown during those terrifying first days in the hospital. Their house had been transformed into a temporary care facility. Kate had moved Linda into their guest room, installing a baby monitor so she could hear if her mother needed anything during the night. Medical equipment lined the dresser, and pill organizers covered the nightstand. Kate had created detailed charts tracking Linda's medications, vital signs, and physical therapy exercises. William watched his wife navigate this new reality with a mixture of admiration and growing concern. Kate's dedication was remarkable, but she was pushing herself to exhaustion. She barely slept, barely ate, and had taken an indefinite leave of absence from the library to focus entirely on Linda's care. "Kate, you need to rest," William said one evening as he found her organizing Linda's medications for the third time that day. "Mom is sleeping peacefully. She's doing well." "I know she's doing well," Kate replied without looking up from the pill bottles, "and I want to keep it that way. Did you know that medication errors are one of the leading causes of readmission to hospitals? I read about it online. William gently took the pill bottles from her hands. And did you also read about caregiver burnout? About how stress can affect your immune system and your mental health? Kate finally looked at him, and William was startled by how thin she had become. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame, and there were dark circles under her eyes that hadn't been there a month ago. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "No, you're not fine. And if you keep going like this, you're going to make yourself sick. Then who's going to take care of your mom?" It was the right thing to say, and William knew it. Kate's greatest fear was that something would happen to Linda because Kate hadn't been careful enough, hadn't been vigilant enough. I almost lost her, William. I can't take any chances." William pulled Kate into his arms, feeling how fragile she had become. "You didn't lose her. She's here. She's getting better, and she's going to continue getting better. But she needs her daughter to be healthy too." Over the next few days, William began to take on more of Linda's care. He learned how to check her blood pressure, helped her with physical therapy exercises, and took over the evening medication routine. Slowly, Kate began to relax her vigilant watch. Linda, for her part, was remarkably resilient. Her sense of humor returned first. She complained about the bland cardiac diet, made jokes about feeling like a science experiment with all her monitoring equipment, and expressed her determination to get back to her beloved garden. "I have tulips to plant this fall," she told Kate one afternoon as they sat on the back porch together. "Those bulbs aren't going to plant themselves." "Mom, the doctor said you need to avoid heavy physical activity," Kate reminded her. "Heavy physical activity, yes. Planting a few flowers, no. There's a difference." Linda studied her daughter's face carefully. "Kate, honey, you look terrible." "Thanks, Mom. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear." "I'm serious. When was the last time you did something just for yourself? When did you last read a book or paint your nails or do any of those little things that make you happy?" Kate thought about it and realized she couldn't remember. The past month had been consumed entirely by medical appointments, medication schedules, and constant worry. "I've been busy taking care of you," Kate said, "and I appreciate that more than you know. But sweetheart, I didn't survive a heart attack just to watch my daughter waste away from worry. That's not the life I want for you." That evening, Linda had a long conversation with William while Kate was grocery shopping for more heart-healthy foods. "She's not sleeping," William told Linda as they sat in the living room. "She gets up several times every night to check on you. I hear her tiptoeing down the hall, looking in on you, making sure you're still breathing." Linda sighed heavily. "I was afraid of something like this. Kate has always been my caretaker, even when she was little. When her father and I divorced, she tried to take care of me then too. She was only 8 years old, but she would bring me tissues when I cried and make me peanut butter sandwiches for dinner. She loves you so much," William said. "Maybe too much, if that's possible." "It's possible," Linda agreed. "And it's my fault. I relied on her too much after the divorce. I should have been stronger, should have protected her from feeling like she had to take care of the adult in the relationship. You were dealing with your own pain then. People do what they have to do to survive." Linda looked at William with new appreciation. "You're good for her, you know. Kate chose well when she chose you. I don't know about that. Right now I feel pretty helpless. I want to take care of her, but she won't let me. She will. Kate needs to feel useful, needed. It's how she shows love. But she also needs to learn that she can't control everything. That sometimes loving someone means letting go a little bit." Their conversation was interrupted by Kate returning from the store, her arms full of bags containing organic vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains, everything the cardiac diet recommended. "I found those low-sodium crackers you liked at the hospital," Kate announced, beginning to unpack the groceries. "And the store had a sale on salmon. I bought enough to freeze some for later." As Kate bustled around the kitchen organizing and planning, William and Linda exchanged a look. They both loved her fierce devotion, but they also recognized that Kate was slowly losing herself in her role as caregiver. That night, as William and Kate lay in bed, he tried once more to reach her. "Kate, I've been thinking, maybe we should look into hiring a part-time aide for your mom, someone who could be here during the day so you could go back to work, even just a few hours a week." Kate stiffened beside him. "We don't need an aide. I can take care of her. I know you can. But should you? Your mom is getting stronger every day. She doesn't need round-the-clock care anymore. How can you say that? What if something happens? What if she has another heart attack and I'm not here? William turned to face her in the dark. Then we call 911 just like we would if I had a heart attack or you did. Kate, you can't prevent every possible bad thing from happening. You can't control life that way. I can try, Kate whispered. And William heard the desperation in her voice. He pulled her closer, feeling her tension, her fear, her overwhelming need to protect the people she loved. I know you can try, but at what cost? You're disappearing, Kate, the woman I married. The one who laughed at silly movies and sang while she cooked breakfast. She's hiding somewhere inside all this fear. Kate was quiet for a long time, but William could tell from her breathing that she wasn't asleep. What if I let my guard down and something terrible happens? She finally asked. Then we'll face it together like we always do. But Kate, something terrible is already happening. You're so afraid of losing your mom that you're losing yourself. It was a hard truth, and William wasn't sure if Kate was ready to hear it. But as her husband, as someone who loved her completely, he felt he had to try to reach her before she disappeared entirely into her fear. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday morning 6 weeks after Linda's heart attack. Kate had been awake since 3 in the morning, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. She had checked on her mother 4 times, each time finding Linda sleeping peacefully, but the anxiety wouldn't leave her chest. By 7, Kate was in the kitchen making breakfast with shaking hands, spilling coffee grounds on the counter and burning the toast. When William came downstairs, he found her standing at the sink staring out the window at the gray morning sky. Kate, he said gently. She didn't respond. William moved closer and saw that she was crying silently, tears streaming down her cheeks as she gripped the edge of the counter. Sweetheart, what's wrong? I had a dream, Kate whispered without turning around. Mom died in my dream. I was in the other room just for a minute, and when I came back, she was gone. The machines weren't beeping anymore, and she was just gone. William's heart clenched. He placed his hands on Kate's shoulders, feeling the tension in her muscles, the way she trembled with exhaustion and fear. It was just a dream, Kate. Your mom is fine. She's upstairs sleeping. But what if it wasn't just a dream? What if it was some kind of warning? What if my subconscious is picking up on something I'm missing? William gently turned Kate around to face him. Her eyes were red and wide, filled with a panic that seemed to consume her from the inside. Kate, listen to me. You haven't slept more than 2 hours at a time in weeks. You're not eating enough. Your body and mind are exhausted. This dream doesn't mean anything except that you need rest. I can't rest, Kate said desperately. If I rest, if I let my guard down for even a second, then what? Kate, what exactly do you think will happen if you're not watching every moment? Kate's voice broke as she tried to answer. She'll leave me. Just like Dad left. Just like everyone leaves. The words hung in the air between them, and William finally understood the depth of Kate's fear. This wasn't just about Linda's heart attack. This was about every loss Kate had ever experienced, every person who had left her life, voluntarily or not. Kate's father had walked out when she was 8, promising to stay in touch but gradually disappearing from her life entirely. Her grandmother, who had helped raise her after the divorce, had died when Kate was 16. Her best friend from college had moved across the country, and they had lost touch despite promises to stay close. Even their beloved cat had left them, succumbing to cancer despite Kate's desperate attempts to save him with expensive treatments and round-the-clock care. Kate, William said softly, your mom isn't going anywhere, and even if something did happen to her someday, a long time from now, that wouldn't be your fault. You can't keep people alive through sheer force of will. But I have to try, Kate sobbed. I have to do everything I can. Because if I don't and something happens, how will I live with myself? William pulled Kate into his arms, holding her as she finally let out the grief and terror she had been carrying for weeks. She cried until she had no tears left, her body shaking with exhaustion and emotional release. When Linda found them an hour later, Kate was asleep on William's shoulder at the kitchen table, emotionally drained from her breakdown. Linda took one look at the scene and immediately understood what had happened. How long has she been like this? Linda asked William quietly. Getting worse every day, William admitted. I think she's having some kind of breakdown. She's not sleeping, barely eating, and she's convinced that if she's not watching you every second, something terrible will happen. Linda sat down across from them, her face filled with guilt and sorrow. This is my fault. I should have seen this coming. It's not your fault. Kate's been carrying this fear for a long time, I think. Your heart attack just brought it all to the surface. What can I do to help her? William looked down at his sleeping wife, at the dark circles under her eyes and the way her face still looked tense even in sleep. I think we need professional help. Kate needs to talk to someone about this anxiety, this fear of loss. And maybe... William paused, not sure how Linda would react to his next suggestion. Maybe what? Maybe you need to go home. To your own house. Kate can't let go of the fear while you're here because she feels responsible for keeping you safe. But if you're in your own space, making your own decisions about your care, it might force her to step back. Linda was quiet for a long moment, considering William's words. You're right, she finally said. I've been so focused on my own recovery that I didn't realize what this was doing to Kate. She's always been my little caretaker, but this has gone too far. They spent the next hour making plans. Linda would return to her own home the following week, with regular check-ins and a medical alert system for emergencies. William would help Kate find a therapist who specialized in anxiety disorders, and they would all work together to help Kate understand that loving someone didn't mean controlling every aspect of their safety. When Kate woke up, she found William and Linda sitting together at the table talking quietly. For a moment, panic flashed across her face as she wondered what they had been discussing, what crisis she might have missed while she slept. What's wrong? She asked immediately, sitting up straighter. Nothing's wrong, honey, Linda said gently. We were just talking about my going back to my own house next week. What? No, you can't go home yet. The doctor said you need supervision, and what if something happens during the night, and what if... Kate. Linda's voice was firm but loving. I'm going home. Not because I don't appreciate everything you've done for me, but because I need to start living my life again, and you need to start living yours. Kate looked between her mother and her husband, seeing something in their expressions that told her this decision had already been made. You discussed this without me, she said, hurt evident in her voice. We discussed what was best for everyone, William said carefully. Kate, you're making yourself sick with worry. Your mom is getting better, but you're getting worse. I'm fine, Kate protested weakly. No, you're not fine, Linda said, and I can't be the reason my daughter loses herself to fear. I won't be that burden. You're not a burden. You're my mother, and I love you, and I just want to keep you safe. I know you do, sweetheart. But keeping me safe isn't your job anymore. It's mine, and part of keeping myself safe means making sure my daughter is healthy and happy. Kate felt the walls of her carefully constructed world of control beginning to crumble. The thought of her mother going back to living alone, of not being able to monitor her every moment, filled her with a terror that was almost physical in its intensity. But as she looked at Linda's determined face and William's concerned eyes, Kate began to realize that her need to protect had become a prison, not just for herself but for the people she loved most. The therapist's office was nothing like Kate had expected. Instead of the sterile clinical environment she had imagined, Dr. Sarah Chen's office was warm and inviting, with soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and plants that somehow managed to thrive despite being indoors. Kate sat nervously on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Tell me what brought you here today, Dr. Chen said gently, her voice carrying a slight accent that Kate couldn't quite place. Kate glanced toward the door as if considering escape. She had agreed to therapy only after Linda had moved back to her own house, and Kate had spent 3 sleepless nights convinced that disaster was imminent. My husband thinks I have anxiety, Kate said finally. About my mother. She had a heart attack 2 months ago. And what do you think? The question caught Kate off guard. She had expected Dr. Chen to immediately start analyzing her, to tell her what was wrong with her thinking. Instead, the therapist seemed genuinely interested in Kate's own perspective. I think I'm being responsible. My mother almost died. Someone needs to make sure she's taking care of herself. Someone needs to, or you need to. Kate was quiet for a moment, considering the difference. I guess I need to, because what if I don't and something happens to her? What would it mean if something happened to your mother? The question hit Kate like a physical blow. Her eyes filled with tears as she tried to articulate the fear that lived deep in her chest. It would mean I failed her. It would mean I wasn't good enough to keep her safe. It would mean, Kate's voice broke. It would mean I'm alone. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly. Tell me about being alone. Over the next hour, Kate found herself talking about things she had never said out loud. About watching her father pack his suitcase when she was 8. About how he had promised it was temporary but never came back. About her grandmother's sudden death when Kate was a teenager. How one day they were planning a shopping trip and the next day Kate was standing at her funeral. "I've always been the one left behind," Kate said, tears streaming down her face. "Everyone I love leaves one way or another. And I can't go through that again. So you try to control their safety, thinking that if you're vigilant enough, careful enough, you can prevent loss from happening?" Kate nodded, unable to speak. "Kate, can I ask you something that might be difficult to hear?" Kate tensed but nodded again. "Do you think your father left because you weren't good enough at taking care of things? Do you think your grandmother died because you didn't love her enough or pay enough attention to her health?" "No," Kate said immediately. "Dad left because he was selfish and couldn't handle being a parent. Grandma died because she had a stroke. There was nothing I could have done. But you think you can prevent your mother from dying by monitoring her constantly?" The contradiction hit Kate with startling clarity. Logically, she knew that she hadn't caused the other losses in her life. But emotionally, she had been carrying the weight of responsibility for everyone's well-being since she was a child. "It's different," Kate said weakly. "Mom's condition is manageable. If she takes her medications, follows her diet, gets enough rest, then she'll never die?" Kate was quiet for a long moment. "No, she'll still die someday. Everyone does. And when that day comes, whether it's next year or 30 years from now, will it be your fault?" "No," Kate whispered. "But right now you're living as if it would be your fault. You're sacrificing your own health, your marriage, your life, trying to prevent something that you logically know you can't prevent." That evening, Kate came home to find William cooking dinner. It was the first time in months that she had walked into a house that smelled of food instead of disinfectant and anxiety. "How did it go?" William asked, not pushing but making it clear he was available to listen. "Hard," Kate said simply. "She asked me questions I didn't want to answer. But you answered them anyway? Some of them." Kate sat down at the kitchen table, watching William move around their kitchen with the easy familiarity of someone who belonged there. "William, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you angry with me? For these past few months, for what I put you through?" William turned off the stove and came to sit across from Kate. "Angry?" "No, worried, yes. Scared sometimes, but not angry. I know I've been difficult, obsessive. I know I shut you out. You were in pain, Kate. People in pain don't always make the best decisions. I knew that the woman I married was still in there somewhere, just buried under all that fear." Kate reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm still buried under it, I think. But maybe I can start digging my way out." Over the next few weeks, Kate began the slow work of untangling her need for control from her capacity for love. In therapy, she explored the difference between caring for someone and feeling responsible for their entire existence. She learned breathing techniques for when the anxiety became overwhelming. And she practiced challenging the catastrophic thoughts that had been consuming her. The first time she made it through an entire night without checking on Linda, Kate woke up in a panic, convinced that something terrible had happened during those 8 hours of sleep. But when she called her mother that morning, Linda answered on the second ring, cheerfully complaining about her neighbor's dog barking too early. "I didn't die in the night, if that's what you're calling about," Linda said with gentle humor. "I wasn't." "Okay, yes, that's exactly what I was calling about," Kate admitted. "Honey, I know this is hard for you, but I need you to know that I'm proud of you for getting help. It takes courage to look at the things that scare us most." Slowly, Kate began to reclaim pieces of herself that had been lost in the fear. She went back to work at the library, initially just 2 days a week. She started cooking again, finding joy in creating meals instead of just planning cardiac-friendly nutritional requirements. She even began reading for pleasure again, something she hadn't done since Linda's heart attack. But the real test came 3 months after Linda had returned home. When Linda called one evening to say she had been feeling unusually tired and wondered if she should see her doctor. Kate's first instinct was to panic, to rush over to Linda's house and monitor her vital signs hourly. Instead, she took 3 deep breaths and asked calmly, "What kind of tired? Like you need more sleep or like something feels wrong?" "Just tired." "Probably nothing, but I thought I should mention it. Why don't you call Dr. Martinez's office tomorrow and see if they can fit you in for a checkup? Just to be safe, I will. Thank you for not rushing over here with a blood pressure cuff." Kate laughed, surprising herself. "The night is young. I might still show up with medical equipment. If you do, I'm hiding in the basement." After they hung up, Kate sat quietly for a moment, amazed at how different that conversation had felt from the ones 3 months earlier. She was still worried about Linda, but it was a normal daughter's worry, not the consuming terror that had nearly destroyed her. When William found her sitting peacefully in the living room instead of frantically packing a bag to rush to Linda's aid, he knew that Kate was finally finding her way back to herself. Spring arrived early that year, bringing with it a sense of renewal that Kate hadn't felt in almost a year. The daffodils in their front yard were blooming, and she found herself stopping to admire them each morning before work, something she wouldn't have noticed during the dark months when fear had consumed her. Every thought Linda's doctor visit had revealed nothing more serious than mild anemia, easily corrected with iron supplements and dietary adjustments. Kate had received this news with relief, but not the overwhelming gratitude she might have felt months earlier. She was learning to accept good news as simply good news, not as a temporary reprieve from inevitable disaster. "I want to plant a garden this year," Kate announced one Saturday morning as she and William lingered over coffee and the newspaper. William looked up from the sports section, surprised. Kate hadn't shown interest in gardening since before Linda's heart attack. Before that, she had always talked about creating a vegetable garden like her mother's, but had never found the time or energy to start one. "What kind of garden?" he asked. "Vegetables, mainly. Tomatoes, peppers, maybe some herbs. Mom always said there's nothing like the taste of vegetables you've grown yourself." Kate paused, smiling. She also said that getting your hands dirty in the soil is good for the soul. "Your mom is a wise woman." "She is. And she's offered to help me plant it if I want. She says she misses having someone to share gardening advice with." William reached across the table and squeezed Kate's hand. "I think that sounds perfect." The next weekend, Kate and Linda spent hours poring over seed catalogs and garden planning books. Linda's energy was good. Not quite what it had been before the heart attack, but steady and sustainable. She tired more easily than before, but she was learning to pace herself. Something Kate was also working on. "The key is not to plant too much the first year," Linda advised as they sketched out potential layouts on graph paper. "It's better to have a small, manageable garden that you can actually maintain than a huge one that overwhelms you." Kate nodded, making notes in the margins of their plans. She was struck by how much this advice applied to more than just gardening. In therapy, Dr. Chen had been helping her understand that manageable expectations were healthier than perfectionist demands, whether she was talking about gardens or relationships or her own emotional well-being. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, honey. Are you happy? I mean, really happy? Not just saying you're fine to make me feel better, but actually content with your life right now?" Linda set down her pencil and looked at Kate thoughtfully. "You know, I am. I'm different than I was before the heart attack. I get tired more easily. I have to be more careful about what I eat. I can't do some of the physical things I used to do. But in some ways, I think I'm happier. How is that possible? Because I don't take things for granted anymore. Every morning I wake up is a gift. Every conversation with you, every sunset, every cup of coffee, they all mean more to me now. I'm not rushing through my life anymore, trying to get to the next thing. I'm actually living each moment." Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm sorry I made your recovery harder by being so controlling." "Oh, sweetheart." Linda reached over and took Kate's hand. "You didn't make anything harder. You loved me the only way you knew how at the time, but I'm glad you're learning new ways to show love, ways that are healthier for both of us. Dr. Chen says I confused love with control because I was so afraid of losing you. And now?" Kate considered the question carefully. "Now I'm still afraid of losing you. I probably always will be. But I'm learning that trying to control everything just makes me miss out on enjoying what I have right now." That afternoon, they drove to the garden center and spent 2 hours selecting seeds, plants, and supplies. Kate found herself genuinely excited about the project, not because it would give her something to control or monitor, but because it would be something beautiful she could create and share with her mother. As they loaded bags of soil and fertilizer into William's car, Linda suddenly stopped and put her hand on Kate's arm. "Kate, there's something I want to tell you, something I've been thinking about since my heart attack." Kate immediately tensed, her old fears flaring. "What is it? Are you feeling okay? Do you need to sit down?" "I'm fine physically. But I want to talk to you about what happens when I'm not fine someday. When I'm really not fine. Kate's stomach clenched. Mom, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Because part of your fear, I think, comes from not knowing what I want. What my wishes are for the end of my life. They sat in the car in the garden center parking lot, while Linda explained that she had updated her will, her medical directives, and had made arrangements for end-of-life care that reflected her values and wishes. I don't want you to ever have to guess what I would want, Linda said, and I don't want you to feel responsible for making impossible decisions about my care. I've made those decisions myself, while I'm healthy and clear-minded. Kate cried as she listened, but these weren't tears of panic or despair. They were tears of grief for a future loss that was inevitable but not imminent, and tears of relief that she wouldn't have to carry the burden of those decisions alone. I love you so much. Mom, Kate said when Linda finished explaining her plans. I love you too, honey. And because I love you, I want you to have a full, rich life that isn't defined by fear of losing me. When my time comes, and it will come, though hopefully not for many years, I want you to grieve me, miss me, remember me. But I don't want you to feel guilty or responsible or like, you failed me. Promise me that. Kate nodded, though she wasn't sure if she could keep that promise entirely, but she understood what her mother was trying to give her. Permission to live her own life fully, even in the face of future loss. That evening, Kate and William worked together to till a plot in their backyard for the new garden. It was physical work that left them both sweaty and tired, but Kate felt more energized than she had in months. Thank you, she said to William as they cleaned their tools in the garage. For helping with the garden? It's going to be our garden, not just yours. Not just for the garden. For everything. For not giving up on me when I was lost in all that fear. For taking care of me when I couldn't take care of myself. For loving me even when I wasn't very lovable. William stopped what he was doing and pulled Kate into his arms, not caring that they were both dirty from the garden work. Kate, you were always lovable. You were in pain and you were scared, but you were never not lovable. I married you for better or worse, remember? The past year has been some of the worst, but that doesn't make me love you any less. As Kate stood in her husband's arms in their garage, surrounded by the tools they would use to create something beautiful together, she felt something she hadn't experienced in almost a year. Hope. Not hope that nothing bad would ever happen again, but hope that she could face whatever came next with courage, supported by the people who loved her and equipped with healthier ways of coping with her. Fears the garden they would plant together would become a symbol of that. Hope, something that required care and attention but also patience and trust in the natural process of growth. 1 year later, Kate stood in her thriving vegetable garden, picking ripe tomatoes for dinner. The plants had grown far beyond what she had imagined when she and Linda first sketched out plans on graph paper. Cherry tomatoes hung in heavy clusters. Basil plants released their fragrant scent when she brushed against them, and pepper plants bore fruit in shades of green, yellow and red. Linda sat in a lawn chair nearby, shelling peas from the pods they had harvested that morning. Her movements were still slower than they had been before the heart attack, but they were steady and sure. She had adapted to her physical limitations without becoming defined by them, something Kate had learned to admire rather than fear. Remember when you were convinced these tomato plants would never survive because I forgot to water them for 2 days in June? Linda said, holding up a particularly large tomato. Kate laughed. I was so upset. I thought I had killed them through neglect, but they survived. Plants are remarkably resilient when you give them what they need and then trust them to do what they're designed to do. Kate understood that they weren't really talking about tomatoes anymore. Over the past year, she had learned to apply this same principle to relationships, providing love and care, then trusting the people she loved to live their own lives. William emerged from the house carrying glasses of iced tea, and Kate felt a familiar flutter of happiness at the sight of him. Their marriage had not only survived the crisis of Linda's heart attack and Kate's subsequent breakdown, but had grown stronger. They had learned to communicate more directly about their fears, to ask for help when they needed it, and to support each other without trying to fix everything. Dr. Martinez called, William said, handing Linda a glass. Your test results from last week came back. Everything looks good. Blood pressure stable, cholesterol levels where they should be. Kate felt a moment of the old anxiety flicker through her chest, but it passed quickly. She had learned to acknowledge these feelings without being controlled by them. That's wonderful news, Kate said genuinely. You've worked so hard to maintain your health." Linda smiled at the change in Kate's response. A year ago, Kate would have demanded to see the actual test results, would have called the doctor herself to ask about every number and what it meant. Now she trusted her mother and the medical professionals to manage Linda's care appropriately. As they sat together in the garden, enjoying the late afternoon sun and the fruits of their labor, Kate reflected on how much had changed. She was back to working full-time at the library and had recently been promoted to head of the children's department. She had started a weekly book club that met at their house, filling their home with laughter and discussion. Most importantly, she had learned to live with uncertainty without being paralyzed by it. "Kate," Linda said suddenly, "there's something I want to tell you both." Kate felt a familiar tightening in her chest, but she took a deep breath and waited for her mother to continue. "I've been thinking about taking a trip. Mrs. Patterson from down the street has asked me to go with her to visit her daughter in Colorado. It would be for 2 weeks. Kate's first instinct was to list all the reasons why this was a bad idea: Linda's heart condition, the altitude in Colorado, being away from her doctors. What would happen if there was an emergency? But instead she asked, "Do you want to go?" "I do. I haven't traveled anywhere since the heart attack, and I think I'm ready. I've checked with Dr. Martinez, and she thinks it's fine as long as I take my medications and don't overdo it." Kate looked at William, who was watching her carefully, ready to support whatever response she had. She could see in his eyes both pride at how far she had come, and concern that this might trigger her old fears. "When would you go?" Kate asked. "Next month, if it's all right with you." Kate realized that Linda was asking for her blessing, not her permission. The difference was significant. "Mom, you don't need my approval to live your life. If Dr. Martinez says it's safe and you want to go, then you should go." Linda's face lit up. "Really? You won't spend the whole 2 weeks worrying that something terrible will happen to me in Colorado?" Kate laughed. "Oh, I'll definitely worry. I'm your daughter. Worrying about you is part of my job description. But I won't let the worry stop you from doing something that makes you happy." That evening, after Linda had gone home, Kate and William sat on their back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. Kate was quiet, processing the conversation about Linda's trip. "How are you feeling about your mom traveling?" William asked gently. "Scared," Kate said honestly, "but also proud of her. And proud of myself, I guess, for not trying to talk her out of it. You've come so far this year. We've come so far. I couldn't have done this without you, without Dr. Chen, without Mom being patient with me while I figured things out." William reached over and took Kate's hand. "What are you thinking about?" Kate considered the question. "I'm thinking about how I used to believe that loving someone meant trying to keep them safe from every possible harm. But that's not love, and that's fear pretending to be love. Real love means wanting someone to be happy and fulfilled, even when that involves risks. And now I'm learning that love means trusting people to make their own choices, being there for them when they need support, and letting go of the illusion that I can control what happens to them." As if to underscore her point, a gentle breeze rustled through their garden, and Kate watched as some of the tomato petals drifted away on the wind. A year ago, she might have seen this as a sign of loss, something to prevent. Now she understood it as part of the natural cycle of growth, death, and renewal that governed all life. "William," Kate said suddenly, "I want to tell you something." "What's that?" "I'm ready to start trying for a baby." William turned to look at her in surprise. They had talked about having children before Linda's heart attack, but the topic had been set aside during Kate's months of anxiety and recovery. "Are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured. I'm sure. For a long time, I was too afraid to bring a child into the world because I couldn't guarantee their safety. Couldn't promise that nothing bad would ever happen to them. But I'm learning that life isn't about guarantees. It's about love and growth and making the most of whatever time we have." William pulled Kate closer to him on the porch swing they had installed that spring. "I think you're going to be an amazing mother." "I think I'm going to be a terrified mother," Kate said with a laugh. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe being a little scared just means you understand how precious what you're protecting really is." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Kate felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. She was still Kate Morrison, the woman who loved deeply and worried about the people in her life. But she was no longer Kate Morrison, the woman who tried to prevent all loss through vigilant control. She had learned that sorrow and loss were inevitable parts of loving deeply, But they didn't have to pierce the silence of a life lived fully. Instead, they could be woven into the larger tapestry of joy, growth, and human connection. In her heart, Kate could feel William's love surrounding her like a warm embrace, and she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, whether it was her mother's trip to Colorado, the possibility of raising a child in an uncertain world, or the inevitable losses that come with being human, they would face them together. The silence that had once been filled with her fears and anxieties was now filled with something much more powerful: hope, love, and the quiet confidence that comes from learning to trust in life's essential goodness, even in the face of its inherent uncertainty.